Retro Gamers, and welcome to another video review for RetroGameOn.blogspot.com. My name's Brendan. Street Skater was released in 1999 by EA Games. It's kind of special because it was the first street skating game to be released on the PS1. This was way before the likes of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater or Thrasher's Skate and Destroy. It's a nice little title to hold for such a console as the PlayStation 1. And it gives it a little bit of historic significance. It was named Street Skater in all power regions, and it was called Street Skater with an 8, which is pretty radical, everywhere else except for Japan, where it was called Street Borders. I picked my copy up for $2 from the Salvation Army, and I mentioned this a few blog posts ago. So basically there's two gameplay modes. One's called Street Tour, and the other one is called Free Skate. In Street Tour, you go around to a lot of different tracks, and it's pretty much like a timed run as you go through the whole track. Landing tricks get you points, and stacking them retracts points. And there's a certain amount of points you have to get to pass a level. It's pretty simple like that. In Free Skate, you're taken to those exact same spots, except there's like no progression or anything like that. And another difference is they actually tell you the tricks, like the combinations come up on the screen. This is something that is lacking in the manual, so you kind of need to go through the Street Skater, the Free Skate sections if you want to learn how to do the tricks properly. So there's a few different characters you can use. They're not named or anything, they're just all generic characters. They all have their different specifications, you know, different jump levels, ollie, speed, etc. But as you progress through the level, you earn points, and you can use these points to increase the skill of that particular player. And you pretty much just level them up. Kind of like in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, except it's not with known skaters, it's just, boring generic characters really. So passing the tracks in the Street Tour mode is quite trial and error really. Like, you'll never pass it the first time because there's always these little kinks that will get you. And it does lengthen the game because the game is quite short, but I did find it was a bit of a cheap tactic. So there really isn't any replay value in the game. Once you finished it, that's really it. The only thing that could bring you back in is the fact that you can beat your own score. I myself had no reason or interest to try again once I'd finished it. So I mean, that was it really. As for the controls, they're pretty standard. The only gripe I have is you can't use the analog sticks, which I feel is something you really need in a skateboarding game. You can get by without it, but it really just isn't the same. Considering the game was released in some determined date, I can't remember right now, it was after the dual sticks were released, which was in 1997. Other than that though, the camera tracking is quite precise, and it is pretty unobtrusive, so that is not an issue at all. So the graphics aren't too bad considering the era it comes out with in the late 90s, where graphics in the PS1 weren't exactly stellar, but it's still reasonable, you know, just a little bit blurry. The animation in it is actually pretty smooth as well. I'm actually left wondering if they use motion capture. It does seem a little bit too early for that technology, but then again, Fade to Black was apparently the first game to have motion capture, and they came out 2 years before Street Skater, so something to consider. The soundtrack in it isn't too bad. It's just kind of late 90s American punk, you know, the sort of thing that was in Crazy Taxi really. So it's okay, but sometimes I find that music a bit annoying. I still reckon Tony Hawk's Pro Skater has better soundtrack in it, especially since it has Primus in it, because I'm just a sucker for Primus, no matter what it's in. So apparently you can actually get the game disc itself and put it into a music player, and it'll actually play the soundtrack from the game. But with my vast amounts of music players, I just couldn't figure out how to do it. So landmass strokes aside, it actually is a pretty cool feature to implement into the game if you are a fan of the music that's in it. So there isn't really much dialogue in it. I mean, it is a sports game and it is a late 90s game, which both generally don't have much dialogue in it at all. There is a narrator though, and he really infuriated me. He had these same 5 catchphrases which would just repeat over and over and over. And I couldn't figure out a way to turn them off either, so that's really one of the things I really hated. So overall, it's an interesting and historic game to fill a lazy Sunday, but otherwise it really is just an on-rails game that can be a bit tedious. So all the prices on eBay I saw were around $15, which I really consider way too much for this game. If you're going to come across it, I would try and find it in an op shop or a thrift store like I did and pay no more than a couple of dollars for it. Having said that though, I would recommend picking it up if you did happen to come across it. It's good for a day's fun, really. It's also available from the PSN for $8.45. So you can download it from there if you really want to get it, but otherwise I'd probably recommend downloading the Last of Us demo, because that came out yesterday, which I'll be doing directly after this video. But otherwise, that's it for today. See you elsewhere on the internet.